one day when I'm rich and famous, this is probably going to be the video that people need to watch. Because at the moment, I mean, it's very easy when you look at all these like multi-millionaires or billionaires, influencers like Alex Moses of the world and stuff, like you see how they live their lives and what they're doing now. I mean, Alex is probably a bad example because he still like works super hard. He's very much no bullshit. But a lot of the guys that you see now, like a lot of influencers and business influencers specifically, are they really show like, okay, this is what you need to do, and this is, but it's not the things that they did back then are not the things that they're doing right now. So like I've had a very, very hard couple of weeks. It's since I've been back from Italy, like there's a lot of things that have gone wrong in terms of business that are, and even in my personal life. And a lot of the things are out of my control. But this is videos about how I've dealt with those things and how I've handled them. And I must say, a lot of the things that have gone wrong, they seem like horrendous when they actually happen. But I've learned not to react straight away and just like hold it a minute or maybe an hour or sometimes even a day. And normally I just start doing things, and now I've actually learned to just wait, just think with a clear mind and stop thinking emotionally about things, like just give it a time. And it's amazing how things work out very specifically in private and personal relationships. I think people sometimes have bad days and they react badly sometimes, and if you react on that, something can form out of nothing. So I've just really learned how to just chill. I think the other thing that's also been really helpful for me through this whole stage is I've been trying to stay consistent. Like the one thing I can control every day is I can control it whether I exercise or go to gym. And I know it's like people go on about this, but I cannot tell you how good it is. Like I've gotten much better shape, even though my life's been a bit of not a shit show, but like it's been really tough the last couple of weeks. But I'm actually looking like a better human being. And like, that's really nice because like, that's something that's in my control. So like, I think what this comes down to is like, if you're going through stuff that is out of your control, like you can sort of bolster like how you feel about yourself and improve the situation based on things you can control, and let the things go that you can't control, and then control the things that you can control. I think another thing, I mean, obviously like I'm not a perfect person and stuff, but like I've been trying to wake up earlier. I've been trying not to drink. I've been trying to wake up before the sun rises, to read my Bible, whether you are Christian or Muslim or whatever religion you are, even if you aren't a religion, that waking up each morning with an intention and almost a meditation or a prayer, whether it's gratitude or, sorry, excuse the Frenchy, but just waking up, I think it's really changed the way, how can I say this? It's very easy to fall into bad routines and go on autopilot. It's very easy to, like, I love watching YouTube. I love watching YouTubes on boxing. I love watching YouTubes on business, on life. I love watching Jordan Peterson. I love this podcast. And I sort of got into the habits when things were going really smoothly of waking up in the morning, having some coffee, and then watching these YouTubes. And even though they are educational, sometimes I could watch them for an hour or two and I'd feel exhausted by the time I finished watching them. And eventually I might end up watching stupid YouTube. I'm not stupid, but like, you know, when the algorithm goes one or two and then the next one, and before you know it, you're watching stuff that doesn't really matter. And it was very hard to get out of that scenario. But now my rule is I wake up, I read my Bible, I pray, I have some coffee, and now I'm in my office, and all of a sudden I am ready to work instead of being tired from watching YouTube. And I think you can overstimulate your brain. And don't get me wrong, there have been stages in my life where I've watched YouTube religiously, almost like 10, 12 hours a day, and I've learned a lot of stuff, like a lot of stuff. I learned SEO that way, I learned how to build websites that way. I learned pretty much most of the stuff besides my university stuff from YouTube. So don't get me wrong, and obviously this is going on YouTube, so this may be a motivational or a educational video to you, but it's very easy to pollute your mind with other people, and like sometimes it sort of goes on without you even thinking about it. So be very aware of how you spend your time. So for me, I'm actually grateful for these bad times. These bad times have forced me to sharpen my sword, sharpen my armor, everything about me. I realize now that stuff can go really smoothly, but there are times it can't. And I've realized I'm someone who works well under pressure. And I'm actually grateful for these things. It's made me level up the way I think of business. As soon as one business might not be working, you realize like the vulnerability of just having one business or just having one channel. On the flip side, I've also realized that like when tough times actually come and you actually need money and you need your businesses to be doing well, a lot of the fluff gets cut away. So for instance, with my African Safari Mag, I've been doing a lot. Like it's doing really well. Like I've got a couple podcasts up. I think I've got like 4 or 5 podcasts up. There's a couple that are unedited and I wanted to do more podcasts. I also want to do more YouTube videos for them. I want to write more blogs. There's a whole bunch of different things I've been thinking about. Everything from an SEO agency for Safari to a content creation agency for Safari to a Safari podcast to a Safari TikTok to more unique content. But all this stuff takes time. All this stuff like even to do sales, to do taxes for the business. There's so much that can be done. And what I realized is you can't do everything all at once. And you need to be strategic. Like, so if you're playing a game of chess, you can't just go move all the pieces at once. Like it just doesn't work that way. And I think it's important to be strategic with how you plan your business. So maybe you don't need the podcast on African Safari Mag yet. Yes, it may be a brilliant idea that takes the business to the next level. Obviously, I know it will. And like I'm sort of being like caught by that shiny object of like, I know it will work, it 100% will work. But unless you can fully dedicate a lot of time to it or get someone to, like, I know talking about it and me having an actual podcast isn't hard for me. I could put that hour in, but it's the having to edit it and film it and produce it or be the producer, which has held me back. So how can I solve that? Well, the obvious thing is find out ways how I can make money right now with Safari Mag, the easier ways that are right there in front of me. Let's gather those resources. Let's gather that money and then hire a producer or an editor for the podcast. So all of a sudden, I'm not saying we're not going to do a podcast. I'm just saying that's not the next step. The next step is to make enough money and get enough clients that we can hire a full-time video editor or a full-time producer. And like you don't need a lot of money for that. I mean, like wherever you're watching, I don't know where you are, but like to hire a full-time content editor might be maybe $1,000, for 15,000 Rand. That's potentially 2 or 3 clients, or maybe even 1 client I need to sign. And if I can sign that 1 client, I then can invest that money back into someone that is a producer that can do the podcast. And now all of a sudden, instead of doing a podcast which is taking away my energy, I've hired someone and all I have to do is sit down once a week and now there's a consistent podcast, there's consistent content coming up. And I think it's very important, and I think it's a Patrick Bet-David thing. I mean, he's got a great business podcast or whatever. But basically his whole thing is like your next, I can't remember how many moves, but it's something like your next 8 moves or your next 10 moves or your next 5 moves, whatever it is. But the point is there's different moves. Do this, like the small thing, then do this. It's like you can't go build everything all at once. You need to build the foundations, and once you get more resources, you can be a bit more flashy. And I think that also helps cut out a lot of the bullshit. And what I realized with my other e-commerce company, High Tea, was all I needed to do was get ranking on Google. And because we ranked #1 on Google for that, we didn't even have a social media and we were raking in sales just from one thing being done really well. That then allows you to hire more people or scale up. And thinking about any great business, I mean, like this is a stupid example, but like the guy that invented the paperclip probably is worth a huge this is actually quite funny because I know there's a story about the guy who invented the paperclip. I don't know if he made a lot of money or he didn't patent it. Sorry, I don't know if I even pronounced it right. I don't know if he did or he didn't. But the point is, like, you don't need to create a million different things to do well in business. Like, sometimes you can just create one thing, and one thing can do really well. So rather do that one thing really well as opposed to do a million different things. And so back to the point is, I think it's really important to understand what your goal is. I've also realized my goal is not just money. My goal is helping people, educating people, and also like being a better person myself. And like, that's more important to me. And I think like also when you've got goals, it's easier to, if you've got more specific goals, it's easier to follow them and break them down. So if you just say, I want to be rich, well, that doesn't really, like, there's a billion different ways to become rich. But like, if you say, okay, I want to just make a sale in the next month, like, that's much more realistic. But to make a lot of money, you need to make a lot of sales. So I think the best businessmen are able to take huge problems and they're able to break it down into smaller problems and they're able to solve them and then pass those problems onto other people that they can keep solving them. So they do it once and then they move on. They do it once and they move on, but everything's well documented. And I heard another quote where it's like, people don't rise to their dreams or goals, they fall to their systems. And for me, I've really tried to enhance my systems. And yeah, so I mean, back to the whole point of this video is one day when you, I mean, like, not that I'm not successful now or not, I mean, I don't want to say famous, but people know me, but that sounded weird. But I like, one day, if I've ever done well, like really well in business, and I've reached my goals, or people look at me and they wonder like, how did I get there? I think this is the video. Like, me understanding, like, put your ego aside. Let's be real. Let's stop being fluffy. Let's focus. Let's solve one thing properly and move to the next thing. Let's be disciplined. Let's control the things that you can control and forget about the things that you can't control. I think it's also been like my faith in God. I'm going to say that. Some people might be faith in themselves. I mean, I have got faith in myself, but it comes from a place of God. And I mean, it's weird. Like, I also do have faith in myself. So it's both. It's like I'm putting everything out into the world that's positive as possible. I'm definitely not perfect, but I'm also trying to be the best version of myself. I've sacrificed certain things. Like, I'm not boxing as much as my ego is like, I want to be a better boxer. I want to box all the time. But I've realized, like, maybe going to gym for this month or two and not doing a fight will allow me to focus more on business. And that is my journey at the moment. That's the hill I want to climb. And I realized like being able to put your ego aside and look at things realistically. And sometimes that's what hardship does. And hardship is actually one of the times I get the most done in my life, is because, I don't know, it just gives me a weird level of focus. It's like, I can't sit, when there's a proper hardship and my family's affected, that's when I really shine. And having that mindset and seeing how I've become a better person, even through the harder times, is just really, it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. And yeah, I'm like, at one stage, I'm really tired. I really am. I'm really trying hard, and there's days I don't feel 100%, but those are the days I still show up. And the reason why things are gonna get better and are getting better, and I'm gonna make things happen, is because of knowing that when times are tough, that's when the best version of me shows up.